Hello, Internet. We have a new package in the Flutter community that's dropped by Google, and it is known as the Google Generative AI package. What I want to show you is a way we can work with it, and we're making a chatbot similar to the one in the example package. However, main differences here is we're going to break our application up a little bit better instead of just like a single file. We're going to use Riverpod and Freezed, and instead of just a basic chat app, we're actually going to make this a game show where the AI will play the role of the game show host, asking you trivia questions. It's a fun little hobby experiment project. So let's get into it. So I've done the grunt work of just setting up the UI. So there's no actual logic yet. You can see over here we have a prompt. This doesn't do anything. This is just hard-coded. And the idea is we're going to also be capturing a score as we go. So I want to get that out of the way because I didn't want to waste time just going, this is how you build a stateless widget in Flutter. I'm going to walk you through just the UI right now and the way I've broken this up. So I've kind of broken this into my usual folders that I have, components, models, providers, screens, services. For env, just to keep things simple, I basically just have a env.dart file that essentially has my key in it. And that's actually something I'll wrap up the video with a disclaimer on the way that the example wants this to work, but we'll save that for the end. Now, just to walk you through, so we have our main.dart, and we're wrapping in provider scope because we will be using Riverpod, even though there's no Riverpod code yet. We go to my app. This is my app. And ultimately, it loads the home screen. Home screen, I just have this as a consumer widget because it likely will need it. Most of the widgets in here you're going to see are consumer widgets, Riverpod widgets, so we can have access to ref. But this just returns the main scaffold. Inside it, we have that little scorecard there, and that's basically right now just some text saying 0 out of 0. Then we have a column, and we're putting the chat list, which is basically, everything from here down is our chat list being expanded to take up as much space as possible. And the chat list itself, we just have a list view.builder, and I've just put an item count of 2 here. And the reason you're seeing 1 is because, and this will make more sense later, we actually don't want to show whatever the first message is. And that's because we're going to be pre-prompting our AI with a message. And we don't want that prompt to show up to the user because it kind of takes the magic away from this. Then we have the message input, which basically just some UI and a button here that will do something at some point. Now, keep in mind, I did take the example package and I did borrow a lot of things from it because I didn't feel like wasting time, making these things. But basically, like all the logic and stuff, we're going to be sort of using at least a slightly better architecture than the example one. I don't have a problem with the example one. I think it's fine to do it in a stateful widget. Because you just want to keep it as simple and straightforward and not introduce a bunch of packages for someone just trying to learn the core of this. They might want to use block, they might want to do it with anything else, but for the purpose of this, I think using Riverpod makes sense. So let's get into writing some code now. We're going to start by creating a provider. And I'm just going to call it chat provider. It's also kind of our app provider because it's also going to handle something slightly, outside of the chat land. But chat provider kind of makes sense for this. Now, I do want to note that we have a few packages that I didn't go over, specifically like things like the build runner, Riverpod generator, freeze, that kind of stuff. Some of these should be in my dev dependencies. Probably before I commit this code to GitHub, I will make sure that these are organized a little bit better. But we are using generators for this. So in our provider, let's start. We're going to make a class, and we're just going to call it chat. And it's going to extend something generated, which will be chat as well. So we'll want to mark this as Riverpod. And hopefully I get the IntelliSense. I don't think I am. I will just put that in here. So we'll get Riverpod, and we were going to mark this as keep alive. I don't think it actually matters for this case because there's only one screen. We're always going to be kind of listening to this, but this is going to be a true singleton where it just kind of exists. So we'll start with that, and we'll want to make our build method, which will be an override of build. And for now, I'm just going to return, the number 0, and just to actually get the generating starting here. And we also need to remember, because this will be using generator, to make this part of a file, and we're going to use the same name, but instead of just going to write to Dart, we'll go .g.dart. So I'll save this file, and I'm going to start my build runner, and I'm going to start in watch mode so that every time we make changes, it actually rebuilds. It ends up being quicker on subsequent builds. All right. So now we have I think it's the start of it, and you'll see it generated, our provider version of this, and everything is good. Okay, we don't actually want to be managing the state of just an integer though. We're going to be wanting to manage a few different things here. And things I want to manage is whether we're ready, meaning everything's loaded and good to go, whether we're loading. So, when we click this button, we want to know, are we in a loading state? So we're going to track things like that. I also want to track if there's an error, and I want to track correct and incorrect answers. So we will make a model for that to make everything easy. And we're just going to call it chat_state.dart. So here, and I mainly do this, you could just do this without freezed, but I like that freezed automatically comes with a copy with method, which makes a lot of interacting with its state in Riverpod a lot easier. So we are going to import freezed annotation. And we're going to make this part of, instead of .g.dart, it'll be chat_state.freezed.dart. That's just part of the freeze convention. Sometimes when they're freezed, you will also include the G, which is meant for, the to JSON and from JSON and all that, but we don't need any of that here. We're not going to actually be, saving this on the network and having to parse JSON. Okay, so we'll just denote this with @freezed, and we're going to make a class called chat_state. And it's going to use the mixin chat state, which will be auto-generated. So one thing I like to do is always have this method right here. This will allow me to actually create our own custom getters. If you don't do this, it becomes like a locked class, and you can't actually do anything except for the factory, from how I understand it. Then we're going to put all these guys in here, and so these are our different properties. So like I said, we want a Boolean for ready and loading, and we want an integer for these. And we'll just set some defaults so that we can easily start this up. Then it might be nice to have a getter, like I was mentioning earlier, that will give us the amount of the total answers. So we're going to be tracking how many are correct and how many are incorrect, but we can just have a simple getter here that adds those two together so that we can, we don't have to do this logic in multiple places. So I'm going to save this file. And we'll see it generated that really quickly this time because we're already watching. And oops, I opened the wrong one, but here's our freeze class, all the lovely stuff that we don't have to make ourselves. Okay, so now let's go here, and instead of having an integer, we'll actually use chat state. And we want to return just kind of like an initial chat state. And because these all have defaults, we could pass in, correct answers 1 or 0, but we'll just keep everything at its defaults. All right. So I'm just going to kind of show our chat list. So we have our list view here. We have our chat message and all that kind of stuff. And also another thing is our chat input, which I actually don't think sorry, it's called message input. No, we did look at this. So there's some stuff in here too we want to be thinking about. So firstly, let's just get kind of the boilerplate out of the way for the integration with the AI. So what we're going to do is actually create some late final instances here. We'll first do the generative model, which I'm also not getting the auto import for yet. Usually Flutter project, I find when you're kind of getting started, the autocomplete gets a bit better. Model. So that did, just having this line here made that come in. So we're going to have a late model, and we're going to have a late chat session. So these are just parts built into the SDK, and we're just going to call this chat. Now, what I want to do in the build function, I'm going to create an init function here. And we can just do command period to create a method called init right here. And this is where we're going to actually instantiate these late variables. So we can simply just go model equals, and here we use a generative model constructor. And our model is just going to be Gemini Pro. And our API key is going to be API key, which is just something I have hidden away in a file. Secondly, we need to get our chat, and we're just going to go this model.startChat. Okay, cool. Then a couple other things I want to have as part of this singleton here is stuff to access the scroll controller of our list view. So right here, we want to have a scroll controller so that we can control it to be like scroll to the bottom. We also need a text editing controller on the text field, and we also want a focus node on it so that we can, work with those things. So we will also create those, and I'll just do them right here. Technically, these don't have to be late. We could instantiate them right here, but I just kind of like the pattern. We're already doing some late things here, and we're already kind of, initializing. So we can just kind of keep that going. But basically, we can just underneath these set all that. So I could have just as easily just, put this here and not made it a late variable. I could have gone equals this and not have it late. But since I'm already using late ones, I just think this looks nice. It's like, okay, we're instantiate, we're like, setting them here, and we're actually like instantiating them right here all together. Okay, so we'll start with that, and that's a good start here. Next up, I want to create a few helpers for working with our state. So for instance, I want an easy way to just start loading and complete loading. So I could, of course, anytime I want to, make loading equal true, I could just have this same line, and there's gonna be a few places for it. Rather than just having that same code in a few places, I just want one centralized place, because, if we want to change it for some reason, like loading changed to, is loading, we'd only have to do it in one spot. So I've created these, and these just, update the state by doing the copy with on it. We also want a way to, when we get a correct answer or a wrong answer, we want to be able to change that. So it's just, we would be able to call add correct answer, and it just takes the current correct answers and adds one to it. Same with incorrect. So we have those helpers. We're also going to want a helper to scroll down. So I'm just going to call this scroll down. And basically this function right here just does an animate to on that scroll controller, which we're going to attach. So that's a reference to this, which in our UI we're going to attach to it. And then we want something for error handling. So I'm just going to have a handle error where we pass in an error and it sets the state to that, as well as clearing the error. Okay, so those are some of just our private helpers there that we'll be able to use. Let's get into actually sending a message. So here what we're going to do is, this is going to be a async function, but it's not going to return anything because it's just going to work with the provider internally. And we'll just call it send chat message. And here we're going to allow a message to be passed in, but we won't require it. And the reason is that we're actually going to set the message, and we can use the walrus operator here. I believe that's what it's called. Maybe I'm thinking of Python, but we can use this right here to, if it is null, it'll fall back to something else. And what we can actually use is our text controller.text, right? So we'll just be able to call send chat message without any parameters, and it'll just use whatever's in that text controller. However, I'm going to trim this too, because we might as well save on the little bit of network if there's just a bunch of spaces. And we want to check, after it's already been trimmed, we'll go if message.isEmpty. Then we can use our handle error function, right? And we can just say something like, please add your message. And we'll return out so nothing happens. And I realize it's giving me an error because we actually didn't mark this as async, and this is supposed to return a future void. And in that case, we're just returning a void. Now we're returning a future void, so we're good. Also at the start of this, I just want to clear the error in case there is one. So we'll call our clear error function just like that. And now, once we get past this, we're going to start loading. And we're going to make a try catch block here, and we'll have error and stack trace. And we also are going to use a finally, which is just a cool thing you can do. Whether it succeeds or fails, we can still call some code after all of that. So we got that block ready, and basically in here, this is where we're going to actually try and work with the SDK. So final, we'll call this response, and it's going to be equal to. Now we have to await this, but we're going to use our chat, which is just a reference to our chat model right here, or the chat instance, and we'll do send message. And here we can't just pass the text in, we actually have to pass it within a wrapper called content, and content's also just part of that package. And in here we can actually use a factory content.text and just pass in the message. Then we're going to get something back, hopefully. So we'll just call it text, and we just take the response.text, and that'll actually be just the text response of it, and we can go from there. So what we can check first is just, is the text null, which is obviously a possibility. So if it is null, we'll just set our error. Now I realize here we can actually use our handle error, and here I'll just take this. So just to, again, keep it simple. We'll just get the problems out of the way first. So inside the catch, so something went wrong, we can actually print, to the console for our own development needs, the error, and we can also print the stack trace. Now I like to wrap these partly to get rid of this error, partly to not, give other people these error logs. We can actually wrap this in kdebug mode. So if we're in debug mode, meaning we've just kind of built it, it's not a release version of it, we'll do this. That also gets rid of the error, which is nice, or the linting problem there. But after that, we still want to handle the error. So we'll just take error and we'll convert it to a string because it's just an object right now. Finally, once everything's done, we want to end loading, and we'll take our text controller and we'll actually clear it. And we'll take our text field focus and we'll request focus, which will basically mean, because maybe I just click that button, it'll basically be like, hey, cool, I'm going to give focus back to this. So kind of like re-auto focuses it. So you can just type again without having to click, which is nice. Okay, so we have our text here. We do this, and the one other thing we need to do is scroll down. Now, notice I'm not doing anything with this text. I could go and actually, maybe we actually track the list of everything in, in Riverpod. We could have another thing in our chat state for the list of messages, but the chat client actually already handles that. However, if you wanted to do this like persistently, like a persistent storage kind of thing, you might want to do something with it, save it locally, put it in the provider, whatever. But we don't even have to worry about that. We just want to like scroll down if everything goes well. So let's test this out. So we've got most of the work done here for just the basic chat, but we need to go to our list. And here we're going to have to do a few things, right? So we're going to make a reference to our state, and I'm going to just call it final state equals ref.watch. Sorry, actually, let's do our provider first. So we'll read our chat provider dot notifier, and then we have our provider here. So in here, we can hook up a few of these things. So we can, for instance, make our controller for the list view, our provider dot scroll controller. Next, we need to figure out our item count. Right now, I've just set it randomly to 2. But we're actually going to take our provider dot chat history, dot length. So that's going to give us a number back and conform to an item count here. Then, so what I'm doing, because we're eventually going to have a prompt. Now, actually, I will remove this for now because we're going to test this out without our sort of like pre-prompt, but we'll come back to that. So we need to get content. So final content equals, and we take our provider.chat.history.toList. And now I'm just going to rename this index. And we want the one at that index right there. And the reason we have to do two lists is because this is actually an iterable at this point. It's not actually a list. So we just convert it to a list and everyone's happy. And then we want the actual text within there. So we can just go text equals content.parts. And then we want to check where type. And this will allow us to look for certain things, and we just have to put a generic for text part here, which I will import. And we go map, and we put a string here. And then, and this one's a little bit confusing, but we go e.text. And then we just want to join them because they can be multiple lines sometimes. We join with just an empty space there. Let me just see this whole line all at once. I can do this. So we're looking in the parts, we're finding all the ones where it's a text part, and then we are mapping through them and basically joining them together. And then what we want to do is return, oh, we already are, our chat message, but instead of just like this is a test message, we're actually going to do text. And from user, what we want to do is check content.role equals user. Right there. And this is really just used to determine whether it shows up on the left or right, and obviously the color as well. So we have that. That's good. Now let's go to our message input. So our message input, a few things we need to do. We're going to do a similar thing where we got our provider, but we're also going to get the state because we're going to want to know some things about this. So we will start by going to the text field, and in the text field, we want to set a focus node. So here we can just use provider.focus, text field focus. Then we also want to set a controller too, right? So that is in the, there we have it. Yep, controller, and here we'd use provider.text controller. So we're hooking those together, which is nice. Then we're going to want to do some stuff on our submit. So on submitted, this would be a string. However, because we're using a text controller and because of the way this works, we really can just go provider.sendChat message because it's going to automatically pull it from this controller. So just a little bit easier. And then right here, we want to basically do the same thing. This actually doesn't have to be async. So we'll just do provider.sendMessage. Now, one little quality of life thing we might want to do is we can actually look at our state.loading. And if it's loading, we can actually put a circular progress indicator. And if it's not, we'll show that. That way you can't, click it more than once. All right, let's see if we missed anything. Chances are we missed something, but let's try it out anyways. Okay, what is the capital of Canada? Okay, so we have it going, and interesting. We nothing really happened there, so let's figure out what could be going on. All right, I realize it's because we're not actually doing anything to the state, so there's no reason for it to rebuild. So for this, for now, I'm just going to say add correct answer because the add correct answer will ultimately change the state to something else. And we can just do that, and this should just work now. So let's, we'll have to rebuild here. And let's try that again. What is the capital of the UK? And although I paused real quick when I noticed we weren't watching state at all here anyways, so that change didn't actually do anything. But now it should work. What is the capital of, I can make spelling mistakes, it's fine. In fact, this is actually probably the correct spelling, of Australia. So there we go, we have this, cool. All right. Seeing that this is kind of a bit of a hack, I'm actually thinking there's probably a better way we could be doing this, but I'm going to keep moving forward, and we might come back to that if this video doesn't get too long. So let's get to the fun part of this. So what I essentially want to do, let me just close some of these, is we don't want to just make this a chat bot. Like anyone can, go, there's no need to just release this. Like someone can just go to the website and they can pay for it themselves. So we want to make this a little more fun, and we're going to make it sort of a game show. So what I want to do is, and I'll put this code right here. We're going to make a async function that doesn't return anything, and it's going to be called create initial prompt. And I've created this prompt that works okay. But just to walk you through it real quick, basically, we're just telling our chat client, we're being polite, hello, Gemini. And I think I spelled Gemini wrong. So we're telling them you are a game show host. You'll first respond with something to welcome them to the game show and ask what category to choose from, either these things, geography, history, etc. Then they'll respond with a choice for one of these categories. If they don't pick a valid category, remind them of the categories and they'll try again. Once they pick a category, you'll ask them a random question from that category. Then they will answer and you will determine if it's correct or not and ask them to choose another category. And this continues. Very importantly, and this will make sense soon, for correct responses, please include a checkmark emoji in your response. If incorrect, add this. And then, although this is multiple choice, please don't include things like A, B, etc. And the reason we're doing that is it seems like the chat API, if a user is only typing like a single character, it can sometimes create an error because it thinks it's like spam or too short. So that's what was actually happening originally when I tested out this project. And if I just did A, sometimes it would just fail. It would get caught as like, spam or whatever. Okay, so basically we have that prompt. You can tweak it, you can do whatever you want. And what we want to do now is actually await send chat message, and we'll pass in that prompt. Then we're going to go state equals state.copy with ready equals true. Now, what I want to do is we actually want to call this in our init function. However, we can't just call it instantly, like right here. I can't just do this because this is actually being called before this is returned. So we do actually have to just wrap this in a future.delayed. And it can be I think even like 1 millisecond will probably work, but we'll just do 100 milliseconds. And then in the callback for that, then we actually call this. Otherwise, we get an error from Riverpod because it tries to do it. Then what we actually want to do on our, I think we'll do it on the home screen. What we can do is also watch our state here. So we'll just go state equals ref.watch, and we'll watch the, what's it called again? Chat provider. And here we will actually go and check if state.isReady, or state.ready rather, we'll have this. Otherwise, we're just going to have a circular progress indicator. So until that first message is sent and everything's good, we will, do that. So we create our initial prompt, everything goes. And then, what I want to do is in our chat list, we don't want to show that first message. So that's why I have this here. So if the index is equal to 0, don't actually just return a size box.shrink to, a simple way to do it. There's other ways we could. So let's save all that. And I also realized, let's just make this a little bit prettier, and we'll wrap this in the center so that it's right on the center of the screen. Now, we do have to do a full rebuild because we made a pretty substantial change that involved our state. But now we should see it go. And here we have it. So it sent that first question. Welcome to the show, contestant. I'm your host, Gemini. Let's get started. To begin, please choose a category. So let's start with science because I know a little bit about science. So send that. Great choice. Which of the following is not a state of matter? I actually don't know if this is, I feel like all these are states of matter. I actually got this question earlier. At least last time plasma was the correct answer. Then I looked it up and it seems like plasma is a state of matter, but the you know, I don't know, the chatbot's maybe smarter than me. It's saying it's rather a state of ionized gas. Cool. So let's also, let's try history, and I'll try and do one wrong. So this one, first president, George Washington, is obviously the correct answer. I'm going to do Thomas Jefferson, though, just to show a wrong answer. Incorrect, you know, it's this person. Then, you know, then this just keeps going. So what we want to do now is just deal with this score. So the reason I'm telling the bot in that prompt to have a check mark or this is we can actually, you know, use that in the logic of our application. So right now I'm just adding correct answer, which is fine. But what we actually want to do is in this text, we can go if text.contains, and we'll just grab this little emoji here. So if it contains a checkbox, then we go add correct answer. And then I'll go else if, I don't want to necessarily say else because maybe it's just them, you know, the chatbot might be saying just like the welcome message or something. So else if the text contains an X, we do that. There we go. So we have some logic there, and then let's just go to our scorecard. So right now this doesn't do anything, but we can similarly get our state here, and we'll just copy it in. We'll import that. And here, instead of the text being this, we're actually going to take state.correct answers. And then here, we're going to do state. Not incorrect answers, but we'll use that getter we made. Remember, we made this total answers. And we'll save this. And we'll see it's 5 of 5. And that's just because, you know, we were always just saying, yes, it's correct. But let's just go like this, and let's just make sure we didn't mess anything up. I got rid of that, right? Yeah. Okay, so here we go. We're going to play again. Let's do literature. Okay, Kill a Mockingbird. That was Harper Lee. There you go. And we can just keep playing forever. It's pretty fun. Now, the prompt itself, you know, we could tweak it a bit. Something I want to look into is how you can kind of like seed it a little bit, because I have noticed that in this case, I get, you know, similar questions when I'm playing through. One idea I had is, you know, maybe we actually like track what, you know, persistently store what questions have happened before. And we could even make the prompt be kind of dynamic on load to be like, you've already, in a previous episode, you already asked these questions, so don't ask them again. Maybe that, there's probably also just a way to like, kind of like, almost like do a random seed so that it's different. But this was really just, you know, to have a little bit of fun and show how this could all work. So the one thing I did say I would bring up, and I will be doing this because I'm going to be integrating something like this on a real project that is more useful, but something I need to do. So 2 reasons. And you might come into this first reason right now when you're trying this out. This is not available in all countries. So I'm actually using a VPN right now because I'm in Canada, and even though it's like in so many countries, Canada is one of the ones that it's not. So I'm using a VPN so I can get around that. There's really no other way. However, say I wanted to release this to the world and not rely on the user's location, having a server that's kind of proxying this. So rather than doing this in Flutter, so we do all this stuff still in Flutter, but rather than using the SDK in Flutter, we use, you know, if we built a Dart server-side application, it could be the thing that is talking, you know, on your behalf. And that server, you can decide where it lives, right? You can put it in the US, you can put it in, you know, wherever you know that it's going to be allowed. And because of its location, it'll be fine. So that's one reason. The other reason is for your API key security. Although on Google, you can, you know, do good things with your API keys. You can say, restrict this only to this bundle identifier or this website. To me, it's still kind of sketchy to put like a API key that, you know, ultimately incurs your costs in your Flutter app. Many discussions about this on the Reddit, of course, about people thinking it's secure. It never is. Anything you put in your application, even if you obscure it, even if you encrypt it, your decryption key has to be in your app too. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not secure. So putting it on a server is really the only real way to do it. So I might do a follow-up at some time when I actually get something like that in place, where it's like, how can we actually, you know, run the proxy essentially on a server and talk to it through the app. But that's, a problem for another day. So for your purposes, if you're following along, you might need a VPN to do this depending on your location, or you could try and take a stab at actually, setting up something on, Vercel or really just an edge function somewhere that you can control where it goes and actually have the Dart code that interfaces with the chat, with the API there, and then the Flutter app just talks to it. So yeah, that's all I wanted to show today. Mainly stripping out that example app and putting it in a little bit better of an architecture. This could even be better for sure. I just wanted to keep this brief and to the point. So thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll have some fun playing with this model.